It's wonderful to be here in person with you this morning. I am sharing with you a scripture which, as a good recovering Catholic, I had never seen before. And it's been a blessing to me this week. And it's an easy one to memorize. And I found that it was uplifting for me to remember that this is the truth. And it comes from the first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 14, and it's just one verse, 33. It says, "For God is not a God of disorder, but a God of peace." So we know in unity centers all over this continent and around the world, the spiritual power of order is what we celebrate during the month of September. So if you need a little order along with a little more love in your heart, then you're in my club. And perhaps you'll remember this week, as I am seeking to, that God is not a God of disorder, but a God of peace. So you'll be happy to hear, I think, that this is a short talk today. Next Sunday will be a little longer. I think it's important that we have our vibration lifted. However, we come together to do that. And certainly the music is always one way to be uplifted and blessed and reminded of what I think is my job on planet Earth, which is to be joyful and a source of that joy. Speaking of joy, last Sunday, I believe in the middle of the message, I had a revelation. I don't listen to myself on the website, so if there's a little repetition, you'll forgive me. In the middle of preparing on Saturday, last Saturday, week ago yesterday, you probably remember that my phone was off and a message came in. Some of you also know that at different times when I've had little challenges in the last year, it's exactly a year this month since that stuff happened last September. And sometime this past spring, when a bigger challenge came up, lo and behold, Spirit sent Bob, 95-year-old Bob, the healer, into my life, and his 93-year-old wife, Joy. So here I am. It's been, a few months since I had really been immersed in the principles of nonviolent communication. Last Sunday, I shared with you what an amazing teacher, healer, psychologist, Moishe Marshall Rosenberg really was, and how he took these principles to war-torn areas all over the world with huge success. So today, after I tell you about my managing to forget the 4 steps, then hopefully you can come up with an acronym. I have one. They're very easy to remember. Let me tell you, not so easy, especially if you're Italian and you wear your heart on your sleeve and you're flooded emotionally instead of saying, oh yeah, I have a nonviolent communication model to happen. Instead, here were the sequence of my emotions after I listened to the message. And you know what? I kind of decided today I'm actually going to tell you the violent word very gently because Bob meant it, get this, as a joke. And it's very difficult for me because I just don't bring the power of my spoken word to anything like that. However, I was kind of concerned, with them at that stage in life. I interrupted my prepping to listen to the message. And he's, God help him. His wife says all the time he wouldn't hurt a flea, and I know that. And he's incredibly gentle and sweet and very, very annoyed with me because I tend to go, go, go. It's Grandparents' Day today, and some of you know that Maverick and Caleb both know me, along with their dogs, as Go-Go. And so it is true that I like to be on the go. So here was his message. Hello, I see you're not home again. You're always doing something and going somewhere. Why can't you just rest? You know, I might have to come over there and murder you. Yeah, that's what I did, Sheila. I'm like, he did not just say that. I am going to stop preparing. So I closed my books. I turned off my computer. And what was I doing in those books? I'll just remind you. And on that computer, the nonviolent communication review. But by the time I got over there, I was so flooded with, oh my God, she's always telling him that his sense of humor is not appropriate. And I just don't want to make her sad. I don't want to upset her. And I just know he's going to be, you know, a blubbering, crying fool. And I just wasn't thinking straight. I got to their building around the corner. I just walked and I thought, you know what? I'm going to take Joy aside and I'm just going to ask her, Joy, this is what Bob said. Well, wouldn't you know it? I love how Spirit works in my life. I swear to you, I did not erase that message. It was gone, just gone. I'm like, oh, she's like, honey, I believe you. I don't need to hear that. Yeah, I said, but do you want to tell him that I'm going to have to distance? I said, I don't want to show up in your apartment because what I know is that we teach people how to treat us, Joy. And by my showing up, the message is, oh, good. If I ever want to get her here really quickly, I'll just say something really violent. So she said, oh, honey, this is not your problem. You know what? I'm always telling him it's not funny. She said, I will talk to him. And she said, he's going to be just devastated. He just would never want to hurt you. So she kept up and eventually she was kind of trembling and I could see she was stricken. And so I paused and I thought, I need to be the messenger. I need to find my voice. And you know, he has flattened others of my boundaries in the short time that I've known him, but I thought this is just not okay. So of course, when I told him, very brilliant man, he just said, well, Joy's always telling me that my sense of humor is not appropriate. I can't believe I've upset you. You know, I just meant well. I just meant to be funny and I just did not back down. I just said, I can't have that. I said, you know, Bob, I just can't. And I just need you to know that for me, words have power. My whole life, 2 careers have been dedicated to the power of words. And I had told Joy that I wanted to start by asking him, Bob, do you remember what you left on my machine about 20 minutes ago? And she said, oh, no, don't. He doesn't remember. I've told you. So guess what? I said to her, I need to. And so I said, Bob, do you remember what you left on my answering machine about 20 minutes ago? And he said, mm-hmm. Would you mind telling me? He said, well, I just said there you were, not resting again, and that you're always going somewhere. And then I said I might have to come over and kill you. And I said, no, that's the thing about the power of words. That's not exactly the word you used. And so I said, you said murder. I said killing to me has crept into the English language more so than the other word, you know, because people say, oh, you're killing me. You just kill me or whatever. And I said, neither is okay. And then when I was processing with a friend on the phone, he said to me, well, he said, what occurs to me about murder is that it's a much more one-on-one kind of a deal, which that was way too much thinking about that word for me, but of course he was right. My whole point this morning is that I participated in nonviolent communication groups for about 2 years. I've known about this stuff for 15 years or more. Can you imagine that Spirit, in its infinite wisdom, in the middle of my preparing what I thought was the message for all of us and was clearly mostly for me, I get this opportunity to apply it, to use it, to go over there and do this. And so after service, I called them up. And of course, Joy sees my number. So now she's picking up the phone all the time. I said, hi, Joy, can I talk to Bob? He gets on. I said, Bob, I have to come over for a few minutes because when I came over last night, I didn't practice what I preached. And he said, oh, I didn't think you were really a preacher in that way. And I said, no, that's an expression. I mean, I didn't live what I believe fully about communicating. So can I come over for a few minutes? So I went. And here's the model. Listen for it because I have taught it here before. I said, Bob, when I heard you say you might have to come over to my place and murder me, I felt really kind of scared. And then I felt concerned for you that you were saying those things maybe where people don't know you like I do. And I said, I have a need for any kind of violent words not to come into my energy field, whatever that is. And to his credit, he was looking at me the whole time, eye contact. Fourth step, Bob, would you be willing to not use that sense of humor in the future with me? Oh, he said, of course. He said, I was in tears last night. I couldn't eat. My wife has been telling me our whole life that my sense of humor is not appropriate. And I said, thank you. And I left. That was it. So there's the 4 steps that Marshall took around the world that I'm happy to share with you. Whether you have a difficult situation with another person, an impossible situation with another person, most of all, whatever isn't love is fear. So when you're scared to find your boundary, to speak the truth that you say you believe, in order to live it, last Sunday, the fact that it occurred to me that I had not used these 4 steps were a huge gift for me. I doubt that I will go into a difficult situation now. You never know. I'm human. My intention is to bring those 4 steps up, and they are. The first one is the most difficult because it requires us to suspend judgment, perception, our filter, and above all, what we think we know about whatever it is that we're going into this with. Because remember, perception is of our ego. Knowledge, knowing, comes through us, not from us. It's of spirit. So the first step is to make an observation. So I just call that O, a big O, observation. Trust me, it's a big O. Because you can imagine what some of my first, it was whatever I said to him on Saturday night when I didn't use the method. I just can't have you, blah, blah. And when you called me, and instead it's stop, access the frontal lobe, and make an observation. When I heard you say, that gives the other person a way in to say, that's what you heard? That's not what I said, which of course Bob was ahead of the game. I said I might have to kill you. Step 2. So make an observation devoid of criticism, judgments, your filter, perceptions, and above all, emotions coming from whatever the difficult situation. Observation. Second step. You're going to laugh at me, but I always forget the 3rd step. I'll tell you why. So the second step is to express a feeling. If you ever look online, or you're welcome to the workbooks that I have of Marshall's, he has pages and pages of what he calls faux, F-A-U-X, the French word, fake feelings. And he says your job as a nonviolent communicator is to figure out first and foremost what is a real feeling and what is a faux feeling. I'll come back to that when I conclude in a minute. So it needs to be a real feeling, and you heard mine. I was really scared. I was sad, and I was concerned for you. Real feelings. 3rd step, express a need. It could be that those 4 words, and this is not to be sexist, it's just how some of us have been programmed. Certainly, I think that's why I can't remember often as well. The 3rd step is to express a need. I have a need. 4 words. Do you know how many times I've taught this? How many times I've spoken about it? How many times I've been in the middle of a situation and went, oh God, I should have put that on a cue card. I can't think of the 3rd step. Observation, be vulnerable. That's really hard for some of us to be vulnerable, just express a real feeling, then express a need, finally make a request. Here's the tough part about the request. That's taken me 15 years. I'm not sure I'm there yet. The thing about the request is to be willing and ready to hear the person say, no, I'm not doing that. Who's that on? Where's that originating from? So that's really what I have for you this morning, is the second installment of Marshall Rosenberg's work. And I guess it's coming up now for a third time, so it's okay to tell you about a faux feeling that I had in my first ministry. I was really, really sad, disillusioned, upset in the early days after the fraud. And I was getting all kinds of counseling from the detective on the case at that church. But I think it was like the second or third time that I was sharing with the congregation. So, this is what's going on. This is what happened. And I called the expert in the congregation. She's such a sweetheart. She lives her life around this NVC stuff. And I said, Susan, so I couldn't find it in Marshall's stuff, but on Sunday when I stand up, what I really want to say is, folks, it doesn't feel good. This girl who was robbing us grew up in front of us. She's a person's daughter who is, physically challenged. We all have had our stuff around her. But the truth is, I feel betrayed. And Susan said to me, whoa, I'm surprised you can't find that in the faux feelings. I said, no, I couldn't. She said, told me where to look at in the book, and I found it. And she said, to tell somebody else that you feel betrayed is to put responsibility for your emotions on them. How about just owning your emotion? So I'm going to close with that, because I didn't say betrayed. And of course, when I got up to say I felt unbelievably sad, I was able to cry. And that was a very important part of my healing from that situation. And Marshall says there really are only 3 emotions. He says, I start teaching people these when they're, 4, 5, and 6 years old. Sad, mad, or glad. Pretty simple. I'm happy to share that with you. I'm happy we're going to be glad together today. And I give thanks for each and every one of you on divine appointment in my life. Amen. So it is.